Hey guys, it's Joyce. Welcome to Medusa Was Framed. Today is our second day of readings from Human Tuning from John Beaulieu. We're going to get into chapter 1 today. I looked at chapter 1 and it's pretty long, so I don't think I'll read the whole thing. Let's get a little. I am literally having my coffee. You are hearing the first words out of my mouth today. Let's get a couple cards and see what the day brings. I have another show today. I am doing another show with Andrew Zabroon. We're going to look at his city of Buffalo, New York. I'm going to bring in the Tartaria component, look at some mud flood buildings and things. And then our mutual friend Fiona, who doesn't have a channel, but has been on Andrew's show, is going to bring in some recovered documents about that stuff. So let's just see, what does the day hold for us today? I turned that over because I don't acknowledge reversed cards. We've got the stork, which is, you think of the stork bringing the new babies, right? So it's an indicator of new life, new thinking. The bouquet is a sign of social interaction. Think of what a bouquet does. Like this bouquet in particular is not like the kind of bouquet necessarily that you would give a significant other. This bouquet is more of a social bouquet. It's a bringing together of communication, lightening of spirit, celebration. But cut flowers are dead, and their pretty smell only lasts so long. So this is in this case, this is me. This is the querent. And the direction of the facing of animals and people and action in Kipper and Lenormand is important. So you see, that's me, and I'm looking back. I'm looking back and reviewing the day. So I am kind of in a position of observation as I am watching these things coming to me. That's kind of how I feel. So new stuff is coming to us all. New thoughts about socializing and interaction, and new things to celebrate. And you see her position. She's very comfortable. She's very thoughtful. So hang in there, guys. Change is coming. Be the observer, not the reactor. Light's bad in here today. I don't know. Light is bad. Fortunately, this is not a recording where it really matters what you see. I'm just going to be reading. In fact, I suggest you just put in your earphones and go do something else. Nothing to look at here. So yesterday I started reading this book, which is one of my teachers. You see, it's a very well-worn, well-read book. Jean Beaulieu is considered the father of tuning fork sound therapy, absolutely. And any company that is selling tuning forks of any note gets them made by John Beaulieu's company, which is Biosonics. So, if you have tuning forks that look different than this, some of them have interesting shapes and different handles and things. They might be cheaper, but they're not made by John's company, and I personally would not recommend you purchase them, but that's just me. So anyway, let's get to what we're here for, and that is we're going to get into part 1, Sound healing and energy. Prelude. Trash on the street informed of papers and dried leaves is picked up by a gust of wind and swirled upwards in spirals and loops, creating twisting, meandering patterns. Each piece of differently shaped paper, discarded and unimportant, suddenly becomes living, pulsing, and mobile through an invisible merger with floating, dipping, gliding, bending, and twisting air. Listen, the spiritual master is everywhere. Anechoic Reflections. So yesterday in the Prelude, he reviewed the anechoic chamber. So for those of you that didn't see that, John is a doctor of psychiatry. He worked at Bellevue in New York. In his works at Bellevue, he was interested, he's a musician, a classically trained musician, and he was always interested in any effect on the nervous system that he could offer. I'm not reading that, I'm talking. Any effect on the nervous system that he could offer his patients. And he speaks of experimenting with tuning forks, which at the time were only tuning forks that were used to tune instruments like guitars and pianos, which he was, of course, familiar with. He's a musician. But he got his hands on one of those tuning forks, which would have been a stainless steel A or a stainless steel C. And he took it into the anechoic chamber, which was at, I don't remember, NYU perhaps. An anechoic chamber is a room that is built so there is absolutely no echo. They're used for car design and things. And he started experimenting with the tuning fork and listening to the sounds of his own nervous system and other organ and cellular systems. So when we talk about anechoic chambers in the anechoic chamber, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so when I sit in the anechoic chamber, I was prepared for the experience of isolation. In 1969, I began practicing yoga, and I spent many hours with my eyes closed in quiet environments repeating mantras. I went on silent retreats where I spent 10 to 14 hours a day meditating and doing yoga postures in isolation. The idea of using sound to transcend the mind was very much a part of my meditation training. Through my experiences in the anechoic chamber, I was able to explore many areas of my mind. Each sound was a gateway that took me to different states of awareness, which I preferred to call tunings. The mind is like a radio or television, and tuning forks are ways of changing the channel through tuning the nervous system. Indeed. Indeed. When I sat in the anechoic chamber for long periods of time, I became aware of resonance that pushed within different centers of my brain. I had thought these centers were like crystal oscillators that conducted specific waves of energy. Through different sounds, I was able to activate and amplify these centers. When I allowed my awareness to merge with the amplified wave, I would enter alternative realities and dimensions where I communicated with other beings and intelligences. One day, I realized that all the realities and tunings I was experiencing were generated from a common energy source. The source was greater than my mind and was the key that allowed my mind to move effortlessly throughout different experiences, dimensions, and realities. It was then I knew that healing is about the constant adaptation of creativity necessary to tune and retune our nervous system to the source. That may be the most important sentence in the whole book. Let me read that again. It was then that I knew healing is about the constant adaptation and creativity necessary to tune and retune our nervous system to the source. This tuning fork oscillates at the frequency of quartz. I came to understand the modern view of the source by many names based on the discipline that developed the term. For example, source in physics is the concept of a zero-point field, a system theory that the idea of supra-system, and in set theory, the idea of a null set. The term I liked the most was simply universal energy field. Cheers. My coffee has sugar today. Good sugar, Denmark sugar. So rich. The concept of a universal energy field that connects everything, although unique in the language of science, is not new. Other cultures have discovered it in many intuitive ways and given it different names. The Bible calls the universal energy field the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. From St. John. In Hinduism, the universal energy field is sounded as the sacred mantra Om. The great spiritual teachers of India said that Om resonates with a great cosmic vibration so massive and subtle and all-encompassing that everything seen and unseen is filled with it. The mysterious Hermetic text, the Kybalion, states that, while all is in the all, it is equally true that the all is in the all. While all is in the all, it is equally true that the all is in all. To him who truly understands the truth hath come great knowledge. Today, the quest to realize the truth of universal energy field has been taken up by modern science. Although the scientific language is secular and less intuitive, the essence of universal energy field research continues to support the foundations of sound healing. Just 100 years ago, Albert Einstein proposed that energy was matter and matter was energy in its famous equation E equals mc squared. Einstein spent the rest of his career attempting to prove the existence of a field of fields, which he called universal energy field. He regarded matter as being constituted in the regions of space in which the field is extremely intense. He believed that there is no place in physics both for the field and matter because the field was the only reality. To better understand the scientific concept of a universal energy field, imagine that you're living in the year 1492 and the world is flat. One day you learn the world is round. It still looks flat, and everything you are doing is still held in the belief that the world is flat. Questions like, how do you know the world is round, really? What does that mean to you? Would naturally arise. Flatness is a metaphor for reductionist science. The vast majority of medical science research is based on a reductionist model. The best way to explain the reductionist scientific model is to contrast it with systems science, which is the scientific model of roundness. Systems science is the transdisciplinary study of the abstract organization of phenomenon based on wholes or fields. The basic assumption of systems science is that the whole or field is always greater than the sum total of its parts. The greatest field in systems science is called the supra-system, which is equivalent to the universal energy field. The following story of the elephant illustrates the differences between reductionist science and systems science. I'm going to have another sip. Cheers. A group of reductionist scientists were independently sent to study an elephant. The problem was that the scientists had no idea that they were working on an elephant. One scientist was measuring the behavior of the foot. Another scientist was measuring the velocity at which the tail wagged. Another was observing the chemical composition of one toenail, etc. Each science was published in separate scientific journals in different disciplines. They had no idea that their work was related because each was in his own little specified area. Scientists can form a belief and then develop a paradigm based on that belief, then do research on that belief and come to conclusions that will have measurable outcomes. Simply speaking, when we are in a car looking for directions, we can lay out a flat map and find out where we want to go. When we lay it out flat, the road to our destination looks flat, and we follow it on flat roads and can find our destination. However, because we arrive at our destination by using a flat map based on a flat world model, that does not prove that the world is flat. This only makes sense to us now because we know the world is round. However, in 1492, flat maps were proof of a flat world endorsed by royalty and the belief that was taught for thousands of years. It was very difficult for people to see flatness or the larger picture of roundness. Now we know that flatness functions within the larger paradigm of roundness. We do not see it as unusual because we have had 500 years to think about it. Today, I can't talk, I'm so sorry. Today, superstring physicists theorize that the universal energy field is composed of thousands of microscopic strings. These strings vibrate and create patterns which unify and orchestrate the cosmos. What we perceive as a solid object is actually the result of a vibrating string or tone. If the vibration were to cease, the object would disappear. Albert Einstein carried his violin with him wherever he went and discovered the theory of relativity while playing it. The concept of a universal energy field orchestrated by vibrating strings is not new. 3,000 years ago, the Egyptians portrayed the universe as vibrating strings played by a blind harpist. The blind harpist knows all and sees all through his strings that vibrate the universe into billions of different patterns. Pythagoras of Samos was a Greek mathematician, philosopher, and musician who lived in 550 BC. He discovered Pythagorean geometry and is considered to have recorded the world's first facts in mathematical physics. Pythagoras conceived of the whole universe as a vast musical instrument. He called the vibrating strings of the universe the music of the spheres. He developed a musical scale called the Pythagorean scale, based on universal harmonies. Apollo, the Greek god of music and healing, plucked the strings of his lyre, tuned to Pythagorean harmonics, sending resonating waves throughout the universe. Apollo lived in Delphi, the navel of the universe, and his sonic patterns were carried by dolphins to the four corners of the universe. During the Renaissance, the mathematician and theologian Johannes Kepler visualized the whole universe as the vibrating string on a monochord. A monochord is a musical instrument with only one string. The vibration of the string was analogous to the word of God or the sound of sounds from which everything arises, including man. There's a couple of illustrations on here. One is the blind harpist. That's supposed to be Apollo. Dr. Randolph Stone, the founder of polarity therapy, maybe that's the book I can read next. This is a lot to read, but this, this is good stuff. So Dr. Randolph Stone, the founder of polarity therapy, described the concept of strings orchestrating the universe very elegantly. He said, "Life is a song. It has its own rhythms of harmony. It is a symphony of all things which exist in major and minor keys of polarity. It blends the discords by opposites into harmony, which unify the whole into a grand symphony of life. To learn through experience in this life, to appreciate the symphony and lessons of life, and to blend with the whole is the object of our being here. A vibrating universal energy field helps us to understand the insight musician Sufi Inayat Khan when he says, "Many say that life entered the human body by the help of music, but the truth is that life itself is music." The goal of sound healing is that every moment of our life and every action be in harmony with the universal energy field. Abraham Maslow, the founder of humanistic psychology, called the experience of resonance with the universal energy field our cognition of being in the peak experience. The main qualities of our perception of being one with a larger field were a sense of wholeness and interconnectedness with people experienced as perfection, completion, effortlessness, playfulness, simplicity, aliveness, and a profound sense of truth and well-being. We all know we've experienced these words. They describe our essence and our inner wellness. The name given by the name given by Eastern mystics for these words is enlightenment. The word mystic comes from the Greek maion, which means to close your eyes and use your sense of listening. All of us are enlightened all the time. It's just a matter of listening, remembering, and allowing the larger field to flow through our whole self as we perform our daily activities. The result is a unity between the polarities of our internal and external environments, which creates a resonance with a potential infinite wellness. Let me read that one again as well. The result is a unity between the polarities of our internal and external environments, which create a resonance with a potential infinite wellness. Cheers. Universal energy visualization. Imagine being on the beach on a warm day, looking at the ocean. Your eyes gradually move from the ripples of the tide, bubbling and moving in all directions, to the waves swelling and breaking, to the horizon where the ocean meets the sky. Here, the whole ocean appears to gently rise and fall in a very slow pulse. Be with the slow pulse of the ocean. Feel it in your body. Next, notice how the rolling waves are connected to and rise from the slow ocean pulse. Follow them as they move toward the shore. Watch their rhythms change as they cross each other, bobbing up and down, and their speed appears to increase. Suddenly, they rise up and break, creating the audible sound of the ocean, which is seen coming to shore as hundreds of thousands of tide rhythms within rhythms. Sound and energy field healing. There are energy fields within energy fields, which are all connected and sustained by the universal energy field. If an energy field, small or large, loses resonance with the universal energy field, it will lose energy and eventually cease to exist. Conversely, the greater the resonance of the energy field with the universal energy field, the higher the level of energy flowing through that field. Regardless of the size of that energy field, it is ultimately generated by energy from the universal energy field. Therefore, the nature of an energy field is to attract energy through resonance with larger fields, which in turn resonate with larger fields to eventually resonate with the universal field. Like a plant growing toward the sun, we will do whatever it takes to come into our resonance with the universal field. In other words, all behaviors, no matter how functional or dysfunctional they may appear, are attempts to come into resonance with that universal energy field. A fundamental principle of sound healing is that physical, emotional, and mental systems are being generated by an underlying energy field. Thus, if we change the energy field, then the physical, emotional, and mental behavior patterns will also change. And that is something I do every day and experience every day with my human and animal and even plant clients. This is true. Okay, I will read to here. A way of understanding the healing ability of energy fields is to look at the effects of different environments. Imagine you're living in an energy field called an urban environment. Every day you suffer from a runny nose and watery eyes, and you take many different remedies to get you through the day. One day, you decide to take a vacation and go to the desert. After the first week of desert living, you notice that your lungs are clear and you can breathe through your nose without taking remedies. After the second week, you notice that you are thinking differently and your emotional responses to situations have changed. When we're in one environment, we look at the customs of people living in another environment. We sometimes think they're strange. However, if we live in our environment for a while, we change and come into resonance with that lifestyle produced by that field. For example, people in cold climates wear heavy coats. Understanding and buying the right winter coat is very important, and people spend lots of time talking about different winter coats. They get on an airplane bound for the Caribbean, and when they get off the plane, their coats come off as well. If they were to live for any length of time in the Caribbean, their winter coats would be thrown away and their conversations would switch to swimsuits. I began to think about the dynamics of energy field shifting while working with patients with multiple personality disorders. I work with a woman with 11 documented personalities. Over a period of several years, I learned each personality and the anchors for shifting between those personalities. One personality would come into my office with a cold, and when she shifted into another personality, the cold would disappear. We see similar shift with patients who have cancer, who go into remission. One day they have cancer, the next day it's gone. From an energy perspective, remission can take place independently, instantly, based on a field shift. When the new field emerges, endogenous biochemical cascades that destroy cancer cells will appear naturally as part of the new field. When the new field emerges, endogenous biochemical cascades that destroy cancer cells appear naturally as part of the new field. Yes, this work is a lot more than just banging tuning forks around. A lot more. And it's hard to describe. It's very hard to describe. Scientifically, an energy field is defined as a medium that connects two or more points in space through energy expressed as tone or vibration. It is a challenge to understand energy field dynamics. This is because energy fields are normally invisible, and we tend to notice their effects rather than the tone that created them. We tend to notice their effects rather than the tone that created them. Dr. Hans Jenny of Basel, Switzerland, developed cymatics to help us intuitively understand energy fields and their dynamics. Dr. Jenny performed his cymatic experiments by putting substances such as sand, fluid, and powder on a metal plate. The plate was then attached to an oscillator, which is a device that produces vibrations. The oscillator is controlled by a frequency generator, which causes the oscillator to vibrate, and the substances on the plate exposed to different frequencies. Imagine any popular electronic massage vibrator, or go to most any department store and ask to see the massagers. Turn it on and it will vibrate or oscillate. Next, place the massager on a bone. Feel how the vibrations are amplified over your body. Touching the massager to your bone is like Dr. Jenny attaching his oscillator to a metal plate. The plate, like your bones, amplifies the vibration created by the oscillator. A simple massage device creates one vibration which can be heard as a hum. The hum you hear with your ears and the vibration you feel from the massager are the same frequency. In contrast to a massage vibrator, which is capable of only one vibration or sound, Dr. Jenny's oscillators were hooked up to a frequency generator capable of different vibrations or sounds. When Dr. Jenny turned the dial of his frequency generator, he could instantly change the vibrations moving through the plate. He could observe in real time the effects of different vibrations on different substances. When Dr. Jenny watched the sand or other substances on the metal plate organize into different patterns, he could also hear the sound produced by the oscillator. If he were to lightly touch the plate, he could feel the vibration in his fingertips as well. The high-speed photographs on the next page, taken by Dr. Jenny, are of sand and water being vibrated at different frequencies. If you were in the room with Dr. Jenny, you would see the geometric pattern form on the plate and simultaneously hear the tone. If you placed your hand on the plate, you would feel it vibrating. When viewing the photographs, remember that the geometric patterns, which appear solid, are actually created by tones. The water and sand are actually pulsating on the plate. In his laboratory, Dr. Jenny absorbed 3 fundamental principles at work in the vibratory field on the plate. He wrote, "Since the various aspects of the phenomenon are due to vibration, we are confronted with a spectrum which reveals a patterned figurative formation at one pole and a kinetic dynamic process at the other, the whole being generated and sustained by its essential periodicity." Dr. Jenny is saying that one can hear the sound as a wave. He calls this the pole or kinetic dynamic process. One can see the geometric pattern, the sound created on the plate. He calls this pole the pattern figurative formation. If Dr. Jenny were to touch the plate and feel the plate vibrating, he would call this generating pole the essential periodicity. All 3 poles, wave, pulse, and form, interact to create a whole field. One cannot have form without wave, and pulse or wave without form and pulse. For example, if you tried to change the geometric pattern with your hand, the sand would return to exactly the same pattern. In other words, the geometric pattern, even though it appears to be solid, is part of a whole field which is generated and sustained by an underlying tone or vibration. Now we're getting into the concept of holograms, which is how people like myself who work with energy, whether with you in the room or elsewhere, work. form of plasma and magnetics that you can't see is real. We call those things holograms. One of the most interesting dynamics of a cymatics experiment is the area on the vibrating plate that does not move, called nodes. Intuition says that if the whole plate is vibrating, then every area on the plate must be vibrating. However, this is not so. The word node is a scientific term which means a point at which the amplitude of vibration of a standing wave is 0. If you were to closely observe a cymatics experiment, you would see the sand always moving towards places of 0 movement within the vibrational field of the plate. It is as though the sand comes to rest for a moment and then jumps back into the vibrational field. The further the sand moves away from the nodal points, the less congruent it is with the lines of the geometric pattern. In systems science, nodes are called attractors. An attractor is a region within an oscillating field that pulls everything toward it. It's an attractor that allows us to shift from one energy field to another. So in these plates, I can tell you the nodes are usually the center, or if the plate is square, then they'll be in the 4 corners. So you see how, like a mandala, everything opens up away from the node. If you were to closely observe a cymatics experience, you would see the sand always... Did I just read that? I did just read that, sorry. In the healing arts, attractors are called points. The key to shifting from one mental physical pattern to another is still point. Something I know about. I work in craniosacral. Still point is also the basis of polarity therapy. Dr. Randolph Stone was an osteopath. Craniosacral is a form of osteopathic care. The key to shifting from one mental physical pattern to another is still point. Dr. Milton Erickson, MD, was an expert in using hypnosis and trance states for healing. He called the state of trance neutral, which is another term for still point. He believed that for a person to change, they must first go into a trance. The practitioner could then guide them into a new life pattern using suggestions. Once a system enters still point, a change in pattern involves reorganizing around a new tone. In hypnosis, the practitioner offers the new pattern through verbal suggestions. In tuning fork work, the new pattern is introduced through the audible tone of the tuning forks. In hypnosis, the practitioner uses different verbal methods to induce a still point. In tuning fork work, the tuning forks are tuned to naturally induce a still point. I'm just going to read to here today. Once still point is induced and a new tone is presented, the change from an old pattern to the new one always involves chaos. For an energy field to change into a new energy field, the original energy field must disorganize and fall apart. Kind of what's happening in the world right now. When the new tone is introduced, the geometric pattern becomes visually disorganized and chaotic before it transforms into a new geometric pattern. The scientific term for disorganizing and falling apart is chaos. Chaos has 2 definitions. The first definition defines chaos as utter confusion or disorder, wholly without organization or order. This definition describes the experience of chaos in our lives. Everything may seem to be going well when all of a sudden we are thrown a curveball and our life gets out of sync. We describe these days with popular sayings like going against the grain, pain in the ass, bad hair day, disembobulated, crazy, I got up on the wrong side of the bed, and so on. Chaos is defined in the second definition as the infinity of space or formless matter supposed to have preceded the existence of ordered universe. From this prerogative, Chaos is a natural state of growth and evolution. It's a necessary part of a continuum of energy fields falling apart and reforming into new energy fields, leading to the universal energy field. Learning, growth, healing, and higher states of consciousness are not possible without chaos. The Nobel Prize-winning chemist, Dr. Ayla Priogine, discovered the importance of chaos in shifting energy fields while investigating thermodynamic systems. He found that all living systems dissipate more and more energy over time, causing dissonances within the system. As time passes, these dissonances increase intensity, causing the system to move further and further from equilibrium. Soon, everything begins to wobble. The wobbling increases until its pre-existent order within the system shatters, causing the system to leap into chaos. Is that not where we are right now? Yes, it is. Oh, bring the chaos, bring the chaos, bring it. When we feel a real change, everything changes. When we experience chaos in our lives, it means something is trying to change. The more we resist the chaos, the more it's like trying to shift gears without going into neutral. In fact, we sometimes call it the grind when life is not changing in the way we want. Ideally, making life changes would be as easy as shifting gears on a car. When we recognize a new tone pattern coming into our lives, we would naturally go into neutral and allow the new tone pattern to emerge. When we are driving and first gear is ending, we sense the need to change, push in the clutch, and shift to the new gear. It can be that simple, or we can grind away. I don't know if everybody would have a relevance to that now. I've had stick shifts all my life because I learned to drive on a farm in old Ford trucks and tractors. A lot of people now don't know how to drive a stick. I've also had motorcycles, which of course it's not a stick shift, but it's, yeah. Anyway, you shift. Tuning forks are effortless ways of empowering change in our life. Their tones are archetypal ideas which spiral around a still point. When you hear them, we are drawn into a still point, and our nerve system naturally shifts into a new tone. The chaos of shifting into a new tone sometimes appears as an uncomfortable feeling, pressure, or need to change how we are standing or sitting. Then it's gone. Most of the time, we just shift without even noticing the chaos because our awareness is focused on the new tone. So that's as far as I'm going to read today. We will return tomorrow with more from Dr. Beaulieu. And I'm doing a show with our friend Fiona on Andrew Zabroon III's channel today. And we'll be talking about his city of Buffalo and all of the mud flood architecture there and some of the Tartarian Antiquitech. And Andrew is just full of great stories about Niagara Falls and Buffalo and a lifetime growing up there. So cheers, drink up. Thanks for hanging out with me. This is Medusa Was Framed saying, see you tomorrow.